I made it. I made it,
You never forget your first time. You deserve the beer. Awesome job. We're glad to have you. We'll see you soon, all right?
Cuomo's been texting me for the past 20 minutes telling me to get out of here, so I'm going to do just that. Good luck, brother.
All right, we'll see you on the show tomorrow night. Good to see you, Governor. On the 66th day of his second administration, President Donald Trump is defying political gravity, and he is having fun doing it. Today, he announced more tariffs. The stock market hates it. His supporters see jobs coming back to America. Trump is doing all the things everyone said he couldn't do, and yet somehow America is responding positively to it. The left and the media's five-alarm fire over Signalgate proves their desperation. Nothing they've done to stop Trump so far works, and this won't work either. Like so many other issues that the left has brought up, it is going to backfire. That's our Why It Matters memo this evening. Let's be fair about this. Signalgate is consuming Washington, but outside of the Beltway, much of America sees Signalgate as white noise, and Trump understands this.
And the press upplays it. I think it's all a witch hunt, that's all. I think it's a witch hunt. It doesn't bother me. I don't know. I want to find if there's any mistake or if a signal doesn't work. It could be that signal's not very good.
Rather than freaking out and firing his staff, which was what most politicians on both sides of the aisle do in situations like this, Trump is defending them, while also drawing attention to the other victories that much of television won't talk about.
Business is coming back to the United States so that they don't have to pay tariffs. And right from the beginning, you're going to have a lot of construction jobs, but you're also going to have a lot of automobile jobs. Core inflation has dropped to its lowest pace in 4 years. We've got it going down. The energy's way down. Cost of gasoline's way down. We're ending the Marxist war on women.
During most scandals, the president hides. Donald Trump does the opposite. He floods the zone. Our job isn't to pass judgment, but rather to explain what's happening and why it matters. Trump knows most of America doesn't care about a journalist on a group text chain. It was a colossal screw-up. We have said that from day one. And of course, if it had been Democrats who did this, Republicans would be crying bloody murder. But the left and Democrats have said for years so many different things were the huge Trump scandal. Everything's a scandal. The time Trump criticized John McCain and said he wasn't a war hero. Or when Trump suggested building the wall at the border to keep murderers and rapists out. Or the Russia probe, then the classified documents case. They called Trump a sex assaulter. They tried to impeach him twice and indicted him 4 times. The left hoped that each scandal would stick, but none have. And that's the point. When everything is a scandal, even made-up criminal charges, nothing is a scandal. And it also gives Trump the chance to say, well, people are out to get him.
Here we are talking about some of the greatest business deals ever made. The greatest companies in the world are moving into the United States, and you want to ask about whether or not Signal works. I don't know that Signal works. I think Signal could be defective, to be honest with you.
Trump isn't perfect. We cover that often on this show. There's a lot of America that hates Trump. But a larger number of Americans hate the establishment even more, because the establishment is who they blame for their lot in life. For many Trump supporters, the never-ending scandals are just additional proof that the establishment is out to get Trump and out to get them. You don't have to take my word for this. Take CNN's.
According to Marist, 45% say that we're on the right track. That's the second highest that Marist has measured since 2009. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof.
All right, you can explain the poll numbers this way. Regular Americans think about the Trump presidency far differently than the Washington establishment thinks about it. Just one example of many. When DHS Secretary Kristi Noem heads to prisons in El Salvador, as she did today, Washington establishment calls it a photo op, which, by the way, it is. But everyday Americans see an administration doing something about illegal immigrants who drove down their wages, took their jobs, and brought fentanyl-dealing gangs into their communities. This picture shows somebody doing something about that. The establishment told them they were racist for thinking about it, and they had to pay for illegal immigrants' health care. Trump is popular because he is doing what he said he would do. He's doing what everyday Americans elected him to do. This isn't because I endorse or oppose any of these policies. I am simply explaining what people see and feel. You need to understand this. The media called Trump's policies racist and wrong. America doesn't trust the establishment or the media. When the media says Signalgate is the biggest crisis since Watergate, America only likes Trump more. We begin tonight with Cenk Uygur, founder and co-host of the Young Turks. Mark Short, former White House Legislative Affairs Director during the first Trump administration. Mark, good to see you as always. The United Auto Workers just put out a statement praising Donald Trump's tariffs of 25% on foreign-made automobiles. Do you ever think you'd see the day that the United Auto Workers was praising a Republican president?
Well, I guess, Leland, I would, in the sense that I think Donald Trump has appealed to that voter segment. I think in 2016, his victory of winning in the Rust Belt of America is what secured his victory in Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania. And so he has appealed more to that voter than traditional Republicans. And so in a traditional sense, you're right, Leland, no. But certainly I think as far as President Trump, ever since he came on the stage, it has been an audience that he has sought to win over, and I think he's been pretty clear in pushing that. And I think that, you know, in particular this time around, he has a set of economic advisors who are longtime labor union economists. And so it's not as much of a surprise right now.
Peter Navarro, to that point, joins us tomorrow. Cenk, you think about Democrats who hate Donald Trump. They view him as a threat to democracy. They don't like anything he's doing, yet they keep doing the same thing over and over to oppose him. It doesn't work. Will they change?
Yeah, well, I hope they do. Look, I think that you're a little too bullish on Donald Trump. And I get that those on the right track numbers are way better than expected. And I understand why, and I agree with you on the core of your message that I don't think it's that people love Trump. It's that I think that they hate the establishment. And so if the Democrats want to regain control in any way, they have to actually deliver for people. They have to deliver for the average person. They have to be more populist, especially economically populist. So if they double down on being pro-establishment, they're toast, because that's the one thing the country absolutely despises on both sides. And that's been the greatest gift to Donald Trump. He just, and he wisely said, I'm against establishment. Now, in reality, is he? No. He's about his number one goal, policy-wise, is a $4.5 trillion tax cut that's largely going to go to the rich and to corporations. He's a fake populist, but at least he knows that he should fake it.
Well, we'll figure out whether he's faking it or not, because we'll see what happens with the tax cuts. Today, he promised yet another tax cut coming. Take a listen.
If you borrow money to buy a car, you're allowed to deduct interest payments for purposes of income tax, but only if the car is made in America. So if the car is made in America, you get a loan, you can deduct the interest. That's a big saving.
So, Cenk, I've often said Donald Trump's superpower is that he gets his opponents to take positions that are unpopular. I can oppose this because eventually you're going to have to get taxes somewhere. But how do Democrats oppose this? This sounds like something working class Americans would get behind.
Yeah, you don't oppose that one. Easy, I solved it. So Donald Trump throws out a bag of squirrels. So it did Doge. Did he really cut $2 trillion? Hell no. $1 trillion? Not even close. They said they were going to cut defense. Did they cut defense? No, they added $100 billion to it. But what are they doing? Oh my God, look at all these cuts. Look at all these cuts, right? And then the gold card and the tariffs. So don't worry about it. When we actually absolutely loot the Treasury and make the average American go out of their pockets to help giant corporations, we'll pretend that we didn't, and we'll distract you and make you think that this is for you.
Okay,
so
the tax cut you're referring
to,
at the end of 2019, 2020, most Americans thought they were better off. That's why they elected Donald Trump in 2024. To you, Mark, I don't think there's any Republicans who have the spine, for lack of a better term, especially ones in Congress. You'll tell the truth on TV. It's why you're here. But in Congress, there's sort of a lacking of that ability to say all these things that Donald Trump wants is great. No taxes on Social Security, no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on auto loans, on and on and on, and say we can't afford that.
Well, you're right, Leland. I mean, both parties have spent too much, and the reality is that right now, as long as Donald Trump is as popular as he is inside the party, Republican members in Congress are reluctant to speak out against anything he does because they're concerned that he will primary them. I think your opening, monologue, I think you're right. The reality is that he's a tremendous contrast to Joe Biden. You see an aggressive, very energetic president versus somebody way past his prime. The Democrats lied about his physical stamina, and you see him taking on issues on the border. But I do agree with Cenk here on one thing, and that is that I do think that the economy is softer, and it was one of the reasons that voters voted for Trump was, I think, primarily because of the border and the economy. And next week's going to be a huge week between a special election in Wisconsin, followed by massive tariffs coming midweek, and a GDP number at the end of the week is going to be a very, very big week. And I think that a lot of the president's trade agenda is running counter to his pro-growth, deregulatory, and tax-cutting agenda. And I do think that that's a big weak spot for Republicans right now.
Look, it is the economy, stupid. That's the thing that changes everything. Cenk, Mark Caputo of Axios, I think probably the best sourced reporter inside MAGA and inside the Trump White House, talked about how Donald Trump has gone through and destroyed not necessarily the establishment, but the institutions the establishment values.
This is an example of Donald Trump, like some sort of Assyrian out of the Bible, coming in and laying waste to these people with the sword. Yeah, and not saying it's a great thing, but he is salting the earth and changing metaphors for those of us who are Gen X and had seen Superman 2. He is saying kneel before Zod.
Cenk, what is the hill, what is the mountain, shall we say, that Democrats actually die on?
Yeah. So don't fight on social issues where we're unpopular. That makes no sense. Don't fight a tax cut that might make sense, like the ones for American-made companies, cars, I should say. But the great majority of the $4.5 trillion in tax cuts go to corporations and the wealthiest Americans. That's the hill to fight on. So they cut Social Security jobs as we speak now. Social Security is ground to a halt for anyone calling in. They eliminated 6 out of the 10 field offices. People are irate about that. That'll catch up with them. They're looking to cut about $800 billion from Medicaid. That'll catch up with them. Focus on these economic issues. Say, why are they cutting Medicaid and Social Security to lower the corporate taxes from already incredibly low 21% down to 15%?
You're right
so
about
this
Social
is not
Security,
at all
Cenk.
populist.
We talked about that last night as an Achilles heel. You mess with Social Security, you screw that up, you pay the price. Mark, lastly to you on this. Give me 30 seconds on how Donald Trump reacts to scandals in a way different than any other politician. He doesn't hunker down. He goes all in, schedules more events, and flood the zone. Why does that work?
I think he's unique to him. I'm not sure anyone else could do it. I think he doesn't like apologies. He views that as weak. He plows forward, as you said, right into the controversy. And if it's really bad, then he tries to change the news cycle. But I do think that this was a miss-up, and I think that the administration can move on faster if they were just to say, yeah, this was a mistake. We're taking actions to make sure it never happens again. Let's move on. But the fact you have different stories coming from the Pentagon versus NSA versus other intel community, it just is keeping the story alive. And I think it'd be better to do it that way to get the story behind you.
Yeah. As you said, apologies are just something that Donald Trump does not do. Cenk, Mark, awesome conversation. Thank you both. We appreciate it. Excellent insight. Republicans in the House are pushing back on the whole narrative about Signal and that this is some kind of controversy. They say only the Houthi terrorists got hurt. But if they've lost Dave Portnoy, are they really playing a winning hand?
You can't poo-poo it. You can't downplay it. You have to sit up there and be like, holy this is a up of epic proportions. There will be accountability.
Thanks for listening to NewsNation on the go. I'm Marnie Hughes. We're here for you 24/7 on the NewsNation app or on your Alexa. Just say play NewsNation.
Tonight we're going to do something no other network will or can, because they cheerlead for one side or the other. We don't do that. We're going to examine the Signalgate story for what it actually is. Team Trump royally screwed up with their group chat about bombing the Houthi terrorists. If someone broke the rules for sharing sensitive materials, they should be held accountable. It's that simple. The rules should apply fairly to everybody. At the same time, Signalgate is a Washington story. It is not keeping most of the country up at night. They are worried about their pocketbooks and probably immigration and crime. But the political reality is clear. The administration feels threatened, which they are right now. Therefore, they are in attack mode. Earlier, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth noted that The Atlantic magazine changed their claims of his text messages containing war plans to, quote, attack plans.
There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day.
Democrats are coming for Pete Hegseth, but Democrats in Congress want Waltz's national security advisor, Michael Waltz, out as well. Former Green Beret, who holds himself to the highest standards, clear-eyed on Russia, which is rare in this administration. America is much safer with Michael Waltz on watch. Full disclosure, he's a friend of mine. But to Democrats, getting a scalp and continuing the scandal appears more important than national security. Senator Mark Warner, ranking member on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. I know you are upset. I think a lot of Americans share your concerns and feelings that this was an enormous mistake. I'm wondering, though, if two things can't be true now that we've seen this message thread. Number one, that Team Trump royally screwed up. This was a colossal mistake, and one that I think people could agree is unacceptable. But also that nobody was texting the nuclear codes, and that Jeffrey Goldberg in The Atlantic way overplayed their hand when they said basically, these were the top secret war plans that were somehow compromised.
Well, Leland, what I would say is I agree with you on the first, that it was a royal screw up. And one of the things that's kind of insulting is that the folks testifying won't even acknowledge it. And they still were trying to dodge and weave, yesterday at least, the director of national intelligence, whether it was her phone or the government phone. And yeah, on the second point, it wasn't the nuclear codes. But the idea that somehow that makes this excusable, I mean, the idea that you are sending out information on a non-secure channel that gives specific time and armaments of an attack that's about to take place, where the enemy, the Houthis, have their own defensive systems. I would just say this respectfully. If they had gotten that information and an American pilot had been shot down, would we say, no big deal here? I would love people to want to make the defense that there's no big deal, to talk to the moms and dads of the sailors on the USS Truman, the aircraft carrier who deployed from
I understand that. I understand that. And thankfully, no one was shot down. And thankfully, there were no planes shot down. I think, though, back to the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Okay, 13 American service members died. It was a colossal screw up.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't hear Democrats talking about the demand for Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, to resign, or the Secretary of Defense,
I would ask you,
or the
Leland,
Secretary of State.
Leland, I would go back. Leland, all I go is go back and look at what I and others said about the screw up. And I'd also it's kind of ironic that the FBI head of, I believe it was counterterrorism, who helped us arrest the Abbey Gate bomber, where the 13 soldiers died and 150 civilians, That was one of the guys they kicked out of office in the first week of this administration. And I guess, Leland, what I would say is, if this was a one-off, oops, screw up, but this is a pattern. 2 weeks into this administration, there were 200 CIA agents whose identities got revealed. Those guys and gals, they can't.
You're making the point that they're sloppy.
Let me. Their sloppiness. It's the same thing with the Doge boys. There's virtually a day doesn't go by, and a lot of this doesn't get fully reported because we don't want it out, where these Doge guys maliciously or ignorantly release classified information. Classic point. They put up a list of federal properties that could be for sale. One of those was a classified
You make
site.
a great point.
And all I can just tell you.
Look, I can't. There's no defense to this. I agree with you.
Last point. Okay, but just can I make the point that if this was a normal military officer or a CIA agent, if they did this stuff, they'd be fired. All I'm saying is, for all the critiques of what Biden didn't do, maybe didn't hold enough people accountable, I'm asking this team who made a lot of hay out of this in what was a awful withdrawal from Afghanistan, are they going to be held to that standard or the standard? Particularly when you had Tulsi Gabbard.
I said the day this came out. What about Hillary Clinton's email server?
Okay.
So I'm making your point here. The last question I will ask you, and I think this is an important one, is the American people don't seem to care. Donald Trump's approval ratings are almost as high as they have ever been. Right track, wrong track. More Americans now say the country is on a right track. The fact that there have been so many games of gotcha with Donald Trump, some real, some not. Do you worry that Democrats have become a little bit like the boy who cried wolf? When everything is the scandal, when everything is a huge deal, then nothing is.
Leland, one of the things I'm really proud of is the Intelligence Committee. It's been the most bipartisan committee in the Senate. And I'm just going to respectfully say, when we have this level, your words, colossal screw up, when we start to see our strongest allies think, well, maybe we can't trust them with our intelligence anymore, when we start to see countries say, we're not going to buy American arms because they may cut us off, I think that's a big deal. Now, I can't speak for all the Democrats. I can speak for me. I can speak for where my domain is, which is national security. None of these actions make America stronger. They make us more vulnerable, and there needs to be accountability.
Real quick, can we agree that Mike Waltz staying on the job and having someone with moral clarity on Russia, especially, is in America's best interest?
Listen, I think Secretary Hegseth should go in terms of anyone who puts that kind of information on a signal chain, that is violation 101. I know I don't know Mike Waltz well, but I do appreciate his views on Russia. I would like to get a fuller answer on how there was no ability who was on this call. And if I don't get that, then I think, unfortunately, Director Waltz should go as well.
All right. Senator, we always appreciate the time. Thank you very much. You're welcome back anytime on the program, hopefully in studio, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. The administration's main defense for the Signal text chain is that no classified information was shared. But Democrats point to this new message shared from The Atlantic. This is Pete Hegseth. Team update, time now 11:44 Eastern. Weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are a go for mission. Launch 12:15 Eastern. F-18's launch. First strike package 13:45. Trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch MQ-9s. 14:10, more F-18s launch second strike package. 14:15, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. The White House was asked about how to square the circle of time, place, and manner of attack before the attack and that information not being classified. Take a listen.
What is it about what Pete Hegseth wrote that makes you say this is not classified?
Well, it's not just me saying that, Peter. It's the Secretary of Defense himself who is saying this as well.
Why aren't launch times on a mission strike classified?
Like, do you trust the Secretary of Defense, who was nominated for this role, voted by the United States Senate into this role, who has served in combat, honorably served our nation in uniform? Or do you trust Jeffrey Goldberg, who is a registered Democrat and an anti-Trump sensationalist reporter?
Yeah, that's a false equivalence. With us now, Congressman Darren LaHood of Illinois, member of the House Intel Committee. Congressman, good to hear you. Good to see you. Can we all agree that putting the time and manner of striking terrorists in unsecured communications is not a good idea?
Well, Leland, thanks for having me on tonight. I think what I can agree with you on is this was sloppy. Mistakes were made. I think we heard Director Gabbard admit that today in our hearing before the House. And we can't afford to have this type of lack of discipline within the intelligence community. And so I will agree with you that we got to make sure this is a teachable moment, and we have to learn from this, and we can't allow mistakes like this or sloppiness like this to happen again.
There is not a single member of the U.S. military that I know, and I know a lot and talk to a lot, or the intel community, that thinks that information such as this would not have been marked as classified or secret. I think we can all agree Pete Hegseth has a vested interest in telling us all it was not classified. At the same time, if somebody had put in unsecured communications, June 6th, 6 a.m., Hitler and his buddies are going to get the licking they deserve, that probably wouldn't have been good. Why play hide the ball on this and deny what is so obvious to anybody with a brain that this information was at the time classified military information?
Well, again, this shouldn't have been talked about over Signal or on an unsecured communication link like this. I think I listened to Director Ratcliffe today and his explanation on why this wasn't classified from his perspective on that. This would be a much different situation if there were casualties, or if one of our pilots, unfortunately, had been hurt or killed, or because the fault would have been put on the people that were on this, and so that didn't happen.
But
here.
No one ever once. Right, we're all glad it didn't happen. But if you're saying that people would be disciplined if something bad would happen, that's not the standard that's used. The standard always is the standard. If it shouldn't have been discussed in this manner, then people should get in trouble whether someone got hurt or not, shouldn't they?
Well, and as you're well aware, Leland, there is an ongoing investigation. There will be facts and evidence that will be brought forth. We'll see if there's anything else that comes out that has been on Signal. And let's wait and see where the facts and evidence lead in terms of anything that happens here moving forward.
Fair, all fair. Let me ask you in a different way, because this program was highly critical of Jake Sullivan and Lloyd Austin, especially after Abbey Gate and the killing of 13 Americans and the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Awfully critical about a number of Biden foreign policy decisions. Can we all agree that if Jake Sullivan and Lloyd Austin had been talking about time and manner of a strike on an unsecure communication channel, there'd be a lot of Republicans calling for their resignation?
Listen, I would agree that there would have been a lot of angst about this. There would have been a lot of concern about this. There would have been Republicans that would have been calling for them to be punished, no doubt about it. But again, part of our oversight role and our responsibility on the Intelligence Committee, and I take that very seriously, is to make sure we get to the bottom of this, and we will. We'll follow where the facts and evidence lead. And if the committee makes a determination that there were protocols that were illegal here or there were rules that were not abided by, I think we have a responsibility and an obligation to act on that.
Okay. Well, Congressman, I can say we always appreciate you being willing to be here and discuss it. And we're better off, I think, also, and you would agree with this, with the Intel communities. The Intel committees had Senator Warner on earlier. And I admire all you guys who make an effort to be nonpartisan in this. Thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight, Congressman.
Thank you, Leland.
Yes, sir. First wrote about this in War Notes. That's your chance for an inside look at the show every day. It is free. Go to warnotes.com and subscribe. You will be delighted and smarter when you check your email at 7:05 p.m. You will impress your friends with your newfound knowledge and understanding. Also see you on social media at Leland Vittert. A rising star in the Democratic Party is sinking to a new low. We're going to show you what's worse than being a bully.
We in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now.
You're listening to On Balance with Leland Vittert on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app, or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, so badly, and you can just see it, she wants to be a tough mudslinger, Trump-like. But to borrow a phrase, bless her heart, because she just cannot pull it off. Instead, she's basically just a coward, a mean girl like we all knew once in high school. Here she is at a human rights campaign dinner, of all places, and she was commenting about wheelchair-bound Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
We in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey.
Oh, and the crowd roared. This was the Human Rights Campaign, and Crockett made fun of a man in a wheelchair. It even upset, and this takes something, the ladies of The View on ABC.
You just don't mock people with disabilities. I mean, you don't mock people. You don't mock people. I was going to say, you just don't mock people at all. And I admire Jasmine Crockett. I do think she's an effective messenger. I think this was a mistake. And I think when you make a mistake, you have to own it. I did not know that Governor Abbott was a paraplegic. A lot of his photos are taken from the step down, from the waist up. But she is the representative from Texas. So she very much so must have known that he is in a wheelchair.
There's a lot to unpack there, including a woman who regularly appears on TV to talk about politics, Sunny Hostin, who doesn't know the Texas governor is in a wheelchair. But I digress. Nothing is beneath Crockett. That's kind of the point. This is who she wants to be. She called Abbott Governor Hot Wheels because of her character, not in spite of her character. And we know that because of some of her recent hits.
It's Ted Cruz. I mean, like, this dude has to be knocked over the head, like, hard, right? Like, there is no niceties with him, like, at all.
If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
What now?
On March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down.
Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess.
So here's the telling part. Rather than doubling down and owning Governor Hot Wheels, she tried spinning it in a post on social media. I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains, and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by black mayors, deliberately stoking tension and fear among the most vulnerable. Really? You could almost hear one of the mean girls in high school with a similar explanation in the principal's office. It didn't work in high school, and it does not work on Capitol Hill because reporters tracked her down.
apologized when I put out a statement. My statement was clear.
But you didn't
My
apologize
statement was
for
clear.
calling him Governor
My
Measles when
statement
he
was
gets
clear.
around in a wheelchair.
I don't know how many
that's
times.
offensive.
I don't understand
Who have a disability
you need me to repeat this to you.
Here's a free tip. If you're going to be a bully, don't shy away. Don't run away, especially from reporters. It makes you look weak, stupid, and cowardly, which is a terrible way to go through life. It is much worse than simply being a bully. But the left will say, and rightfully so, what about Trump, who mocked a disabled reporter back in 2015?
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said.
Trump got shellacked for it, but Trump doesn't apologize or justify. He just owns it. Being a bully is bad. I hate bullies. But Crockett is a bully and a coward, which is far worse. When we come back, measles cases continue to spread like, in some words, wildfire across the United States. Even those with a vaccine face a new risk. Why fear about the measles is not a political issue.
For the first time this year, health officials confirm a measles case has been detected here in Minnesota.
D.C. is warning of a person infected with measles who traveled to several public locations in the city. Potential exposures include Amtrak at Union Station.
The New Mexico Department of Health says residents in Guadalupe and Valencia counties could have been exposed to measles.
Public health officials are reporting the first case of measles in Los Angeles County this year.
We haven't talked about measles in a hot minute. Actually, a couple of weeks ago we did the segment, but we know you're interested in it because it's one of our highest rated segments. And this weekend, you will start hearing more breathless reporting about measles, because measles has now hit at least 378 people in 18 states in the last 24 hours. Reports of new cases are coming out of Minnesota, Ohio, and Washington, D.C. As the number of cases go up, of course, the panic grows as well. Panic is never a good thing, so we will deal in facts. Physician, former White House COVID response coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx is with us now. Generally speaking, I think there's an irony here, right? Because the people who are sort of panicked and worried about this are most often the people who are vaccinated and have nothing to worry about.
Absolutely correct. So if you look at the measles cases to date, if you look at the Texas cases, just look at those. Only 2 out of the 327 were vaccinated that have the reported cases. So over 99% of the cases are in the completely unvaccinated children. Now, there is a group of parents that had a child between 2019 and 2021 who may have missed their first measles shots because of COVID. And so parents should go back and check and make sure that their children got the 2 measles shots.
What about adults? I'm thinking people who are above 50 or 60 years old who got the old measles vaccine. That I guess they didn't have to worry about this for a long time because everybody was vaccinated. Do they now?
So believe it or not, most of us who were born in the 50s and 60s did not get measles vaccine. We actually got measles because the vaccine didn't come out until the late 60s. Now, when it first came out, people only got 1 shot. And then in the 80s, they realized that there were some breakthrough infections of measles. And that's why since the mid-80s, we've been recommending 2 shots. And so if you're in your 40s, you may be at higher risk than people in their 60s and 70s to contracting measles because you may have only gotten 1 shot, never gotten actual measles, but may have waning protection. That's probably the only group that has any waning protection. Is the group that was caught between 1967 and the mid-80s.
67 to mid-80s, so that's me. I'll make a note to call my doctor tomorrow morning. This headline, like a forest fire where large measles outbreaks will occur, according to an epidemiologist. We've been hearing for weeks upon weeks that this is spreading, that this is so dangerous, and yet 378 cases is all that there is. In a way, isn't this sort of the story of the success that you have allegedly these people traveling on trains and bus stations and airports, and yet there's not that many cases?
Yeah, so that's such a critical point, because the majority of the cases are in Gaines County, Texas, and the 5 counties around them. But the 5 counties around Gaines County are much highly immunized. And so their cases, they're adding like 1 case a week. They may have 12 cases or 13 cases or 25 cases. 2/3 of all the cases in Texas are in Gaines County. You might say, why? Because Gaines County has a group called the Mennonites that were not immunized. Majority were not immunized at all. And so what's keeping it from spreading in the other counties, and I'm glad you make that point, is herd immunity. So the majority of American children are protected, and they're protecting the children who can't really have good responses. There are children with immunodeficiencies. There are children that were born very prematurely. Those parents are rightly worried. And what's been protecting them is the herd immunity around them. And herd immunity is really holding. You can see as it's introduced into different counties, even in Lee County of New Mexico.
So maybe this is actually a success story, is what I'm hearing. Dr. Birx, reality check is always needed, especially as everybody's going to get more breathless reporting over the next few days. Good to see you, ma'am. Thank you. One thing you will be talking about tomorrow when we come back.
Thanks for listening to News Nation on the Go. I'm Connell McShane, and this is America's fastest growing cable news network, delivering fact-based, unbiased news from all sides.
Welcome back. The wedding of the century is upon us, not mine. Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez. And if you haven't gotten an invite by now, don't show up in Italy. The billionaire's summer wedding will reportedly take place on their $500 million yacht. Sorry.